Om Jananeem Sharadam Devim Ramakrishnam Jagadgurum Padapadme Tayo Shritva Pranamami Muhur Muhur. Namaste everyone and welcome to the second part of the study of Holy Mother's life. So, as I was telling you in part 1, this is a unique life which manifested some of the highest values of life very spontaneously. In all her simplicity and naturalness, Mother teaches us enormous lessons, especially relevant to this age. That is why I think such an ideal was brought before us just quite recently, not very long time back. Especially for today's society, this ideal becomes paramount. Please see, Mother Sharda Devi, as she was, maybe we can call her little Sharda, she grew up in the village ambience of Jairambati. In those days, child marriage was quite common in India. It was the common custom. So she was married to Gadadhar Mukhopadhyay, who was Sri Ramakrishna at a very young age, at the age of 5 in fact. And you cannot call it a kind of it's a kind of mystical marriage. You cannot call it a normal, ordinary marriage because, in a way, Sri Ramakrishna himself had pointed that the bride marked for him, she is marked with a straw at Jairambati, he had said. So, in a way, this is how it was to be because these divine personalities come to show us something very profound. So they have their own Leela. It's a kind of divine play. That is why Mother was very young, the age of 5, and Sri Ramakrishna was 24 when they were married. So this may not appear like an ideal partnership, but it was a completely spiritual partnership, let us remember. Marriage, according to Hindu tradition, it is a great sacrament. It is not a contract. It is something which makes two lives mutually evolve towards the highest ideals of human life. It is a way of mutual spiritual growth. So it is not to be belittled. In fact, where the tradition of marriage, the institution of marriage is neglected and downplayed, then the only kind of culture that is generated is permissive culture. And finally, that becomes disgusting to society itself. So this particular, it is called a sanskar actually in the Hindu tradition, marriage itself. It's in all its sanctity, with all its woes, it is to be maintained, it is to be respected because that is the starting of the Grihastha ashram, that dharma which supports the whole of society. And it is a way to generate the highest spiritual values if it is held in all sanctity. To demonstrate this, Sri Ramakrishna and Holy Mother actually showed us the highest ideals of the married life by showing a complete spiritual partnership as a marriage and not any form of, their minds never descended to the physical plane at all. So this is a very different kind of mystical marriage which was meant to be a demonstration to today's age, especially today when we see around us, we can clearly understand how important it is for us to think of something like this, to understand where we are today and what we are doing with our societies. So Sri Ramakrishna, right from that tender age of Mother, he taught her everything from the devotion to God, from the highest spiritual practices to even mundane matters like how to trim the wick of a lamp and how to deal with other people, how to understand the minds of other people, how to serve, how to practice spiritual discipline, and how to make God one's own. So he would tell little Sharda that just as Uncle Moon is the uncle of all children, so also God is the very own of all. And human life attains its fulfillment in God realization. God realization, Sri Ramakrishna used to tell everyone, is the only aim of human life. So little Sharda picked up all this from her divine husband. She could feel the air of purity around him. See, the remarkable relationship that they had. Sri Ramakrishna was always immersed in God consciousness, and mother was the purest of the pure. So their relationship only showed us that marriage finally what it can evolve into, and what is the highest ideal of marriage in the Hindu tradition. So, as a result of Sri Ramakrishna's pure love, which was bereft of the slightest tinge of uh, this, the mere life of the senses, Sharda became very, very sensitive. She became thoughtful. She became gentle and not fickle. She became patient and kind. She became loving, full of joy herself, because she saw the perfectly pure love. And do you know what kind of a joy she experienced? She would say in her days in Dakshineshwar, describing them, she would say, I felt as if a picture of bliss was placed in my heart all the time. And sometimes that picture overflowed and inundated even those who lived with her. So full of spiritual bliss, mother was. And she not only tasted it, she gave it to others. So you see, only through great sadhana one gets an understanding that real joy lies far above the life of the senses and the life of the undeveloped mind. And these are just, you can say, synthetic joys which are created in order to overcome our depressive phases. But real joy, real bliss lies at the spiritual plane. When you have raised energy at a particular level, then this joy becomes possible. So mother's life demonstrates this. Between Sri Ramakrishna and Holy Mother Sri Sharda Devi, this was the ideal they came to manifest, that even in married life, one can live completely immersed in the bliss of God consciousness. So this divine husband and wife had no other thought. They never felt the pull of the senses or the cravings of the physical body. Their mind always lived at a very, very high level of spirituality. And that is why they hold a tremendous message for this age, which does not want to recognize anything beyond the physical, and which belittles established institutions like these, like marriage. So this is the great lesson we have to learn from Sri Ramakrishna and Holy Mother. Please read the original yourself. Please read the lives of Sri Ramakrishna and Holy Mother. You have wonderful biographies coming out today. The huge biographies written by most revered Swami Chaitananandji Maharaj on Sri Ramakrishna and Holy Mother, their divine play, and you will understand what we are trying to convey here, that marriage has a very high ideal in the Hindu view of things, and it is important to respect this ideal to the utmost if we want our society to be stable. When Holy Mother Sri Sharda Devi first came to Dakshineshwar as a young woman, she was, I think, 18 at that time. Sri Ramakrishna one day asked her, have you come to drag me down to this world? To drag my mind down to this world? Because he was constantly immersed in ecstasy, in the state of God consciousness. So Sharda's immediate reply was, no, I have not come to drag you into this world. I have come to serve you and to help you in your chosen way. Look at the culture of this girl. The sheer purity of her being. So you see, that is why you find here the highest manifestation of spirituality, because the essential conditions have all been satisfied. And once Mother Sharda, as a young woman, as a young girl, when she was in Dakshineshwar, she asked Sri Ramakrishna, how do you look upon me? She was actually pressing the master's feet at that time. And Sri Ramakrishna said, as I look upon the mother who is in the temple, Mother Kali, and the mother who is in the Nahabat, his own mother, she who had given birth to him, and you, I look upon all three of you as the same divine mother. So that was his perception. Because you see, a mind immersed in God consciousness, it can only see divinity. And this is how Sri Ramakrishna perceived Mother. So this was their mutual understanding of each other, their mutual respect and love for each other. It was like this. Each saw the divine in the other, and each was fulfilled by that. They experienced the highest bliss in this kind of a spiritual communion. They were immersed, the minds of both were always immersed in the state of God consciousness and samadhi. And that is why today they show us a very high ideal for modern life. Mother that way was quite independent. But in spiritual matters, once, there is this beautiful incident. Much later in her life, Mrs. Sarah Bull, who was an American devotee, she asked Holy Mother, Mother, what was your attitude towards Sri Ramakrishna in those days when you were in Dakshineshwar? And Holy Mother answered, my child, in spiritual matters, I was absolutely obedient to him, obedient to Sri Ramakrishna. But in all practical matters, in all other matters, I used my own common sense. So you see how perfectly Mother has presented the ideal way of things. Because in spiritual matters, because we, in our own lives, please see this, we may be ignorant of so many things. So then you must learn to have faith and follow in the footsteps of the saints. In practical matters, use your own common sense and proceed. Mother teaches us this. There is another beautiful incident in Mother's life. How naturally Mother taught what she learned from Sri Ramakrishna. She learned from Sri Ramakrishna the holy life, the divine life, where you remain immersed in God, yet performing your everyday duties, not running away from them. See, Mother's whole life demonstrates this, isn't it? This training she got from Sri Ramakrishna in her early years. He taught her everything, how to run a household, and she would cook and do everything in Nahabat in Dakshineshwar. At the same time, her mind dwelt completely in God. So later on in life, when this lady asks Mother, one day one lady came to Mother's house in Kolkata and she told Mother, can you give me some instruction on spiritual life? I deeply want to stay immersed in God. Then Mother smiled and said, just be with me. And Mother went on doing her everyday duties, like she first worshipped Sri Ramakrishna, then she cooked, then she fed her children. She would herself sit and feed them with so much of joy and love. And then she fed this lady also. And then this lady was following her throughout when she was doing these, what may appear like common tasks for a lady of the house. And then she was still looking for some upadesh, for some instruction from Mother. And so when Mother made her sit near her and then told her, okay, my daughter, what do you have to ask? And she said, she felt a little disappointed and said, Mother, I thought you would instruct me on spirituality. And Mother said, I have been instructing you on spirituality only. Do your household duties. Do whatever duties you have, but keep your mind on God. That is the essential message of this great life. And this teaching, Mother derived from Sri Ramakrishna himself. The state of God consciousness comes from a certain divinization of your everyday life and not by running away from your duties. So we will further proceed in the next few videos on the life of Holy Mother. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti.